I kissed you and called.
So welcome to the Generations Brown Bag Lunch webinar. Today we're going to hear from Kathy Wyatt. She's going to talk to us about loneliness. So we're calling it, Are You Lonesome Tonight? So thank you for joining us. You know, before I launch into this, I just want to announce, just before we started, got some exciting news from Percy, and I see they're on board with us here, but FBI, Financial Benefits Insurance, is going to be our webinar sponsors going forward here on out. So really excited about that. And just a plug for them, they're also presenting one of our brown bag luncheons on Medicare, navigating the Medicare system. That'll be on April 21st. But thank you, FBI, for joining us and sponsoring us. That's really exciting news. So today we have Kathy Wyatt with us, and Kathy goes back a long ways with Generations, and one of my good buddies actually. And so we're just thrilled to have her here. Presenting on loneliness. So you may know Kathy, maybe not. So Kathy's a registered nurse, a licensed nursing home administrator, certified director of nursing and long-term care, and also a certified administrator of assisted living facilities and adult residential care homes. She currently owns, I guess she got two adult daycare programs through Hau'oli, Hawaii, and also a nonprofit. And then we're in a lot of nonprofits together, and she's in tons of other nonprofits. She's the director of the Caregivers Foundation, and she's going to make an exciting announcement related to them as well, I believe, here today. What else can I tell you? I think that's a good rundown of who Kathy is. So what we're going to do is we're going to do the presentation, and as we do the presentation, if you have questions, you can put them in the question box, question and answer, or also in the chat box, and we'll try to answer them as we go along and tailor this to what you're here to hear about. These are going to be recorded, and the recordings get posted on our generations808.com webinar site, so they're all going to be archived there. We also want to welcome Doug. Doug is joining us, and he's going to start helping out with some of the technical stuff, which, by the way, March 17th presentation, which is the next one, is going to be Technology is You by Barbara Fishwich-Leong from Assistive Tech Resources Center of Hawaii. So that's all exciting stuff. And then you may know also, I'll put a plug in for our radio show podcast while I'm at it. Those have been pretty exciting. Last Sunday, we had Dr. Poki'i Balaz, good friend of all of ours, on the radio show. That was pretty good. And we've had Sam Trad from Compassion and Choices. Actually ran twice. That was a mistake. So she got 2 showings, and a bunch of other folks. Anyway, those radio shows are every Sunday live on the on air on 101.1 Coral FM, the oldie station, from 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock in the morning every Sunday. And you can also live stream them. That's what I oftentimes do at www.hawaiistream.fm. And then you can also, if you have Spectrum television, you can just tune in 883. So 883 is the oldies channel, which is kind of cool on your television. So 3 ways you can listen to it. And then because it is a podcast that you can listen to anywhere, anytime, we're also archiving those. And so you just click on our webinar page and you can pull up any of those. So our goal here with the webinars and the radio podcasts are to really build a network of resources that folks can tap into anytime they need to. So part of this is about building the network and all of us kind of joining together and learning about what we offer to our kapuna here on the island, but also for if you run into something, maybe somebody calls you. I just had a call earlier today about vaccine stuff. You know who to contact for those answers. So we're trying to build that network. So you could go into our generations808.com and you can look up any of our magazines and just put in what you're looking for and it'll come up. You can look up any of our radio show podcasts or any of these webinars and should be able to access information. We have a pretty good resource page in there. and we need to update that as we're going along, but it's pretty good already. So you can click on that and click on the resource. It'll just go right straight to the information you need. That's kind of cool. And then we have a calendar with a schedule of events that we need to kind of get more up to date. If you're out there and if you're someone that actually does events for Kapuna, educational or things of importance that you'd like to get on the calendar, let me know. I'd love to get your permission to kind of put things on our calendar and kind of build that more. And that's kind of Generations in a nutshell. I recently started a mental health column, and that was in the last edition, which just came out. So please do read that. Kathy writes for us sometimes, and a lot of the folks that present will write things. So kind of cool. I think we've got a lot going. And without further ado, I should let Kathy take over. Kathy, do you want to start with the poll?
Yeah, let's do that. Wait, no, first let me say something about generations, okay? The resource pages in Generations are phenomenal. And I've even used that premise, I mean, their magazine resource pages as presentations to senior centers because there's so much information in there. And it just lets everybody know that you can there's 1,000 places you can turn to for any questions you have. So I just highly recommend it because, I mean, their resource page is really totally awesome.
Well, thank you, Kathy. Yeah, I think Percy and the team have put a lot of work into that. And we're hoping here in the very near future, just because we've been going through this pandemic, there have been some changes. And so we're hoping to kind of update that and make it even more exciting. So, you know, on that too, if you're someone that knows resources, you see our resource page and you don't see it there, let us know so we can get it in there. We really want to be a one-stop shopping kind of place that you could go to for any information you need. That's the Hawaii's Resources for Life theme that Generations runs. So yeah, thank you. So Kathy and I thought maybe we'd start with a pre-poll and then we have another poll for the end. So I thought I would just pull it. Are you ready for that, Kathy?
I'm ready.
Are you ready? Let's see if I can get it to work. There you go. So I'm going to launch the poll. I'm even going to allow the panelists to vote. How about that? There you go. Can you see that?
Yep.
All right. So go ahead and answer those. Just take a few minutes. We'll get started with that. And then we'll let Kathy launch into her presentation.
While it's going?
No, let's run for a couple minutes. Kind of cool. I can see how many have voted, so I'm watching it now. Very exciting. Amazing what you can do with technology today.
I know. I would imagine the percentage on Eat More is going to be higher than anything else.
I don't want to skew anything.
I know.
I'm waiting for oh, you know what? It's you, me, and we need to do it, I guess. Oh well. Okay, so I think we're done. I think it's just us panelists that haven't done the poll. So real quick, the response is, so like Kathy said, Eat More got 38%. The Hawaii way, everything's about food, yeah. The second best, let's see, other, 25%. Others said 25%. Okay, so tell you what, you guys had voted for other, for 25% of you, a couple of you. If you wouldn't mind, and it's okay if I have this set up as anonymous, and so of course if you put it in chat, it won't be anonymous. But if you don't mind, if you have other things that happen, if you could throw it in the chat box, it'd be kind of cool to see that. And then the third most, Feel Depressed is 22%. That actually now tied other. So Feel Depressed is 22% of the audience. And Sleep More and Sleep Less both tied at 11%. How about that? Nobody felt anxious. Nobody became irritable. That's good. Yeah, we shouldn't be irritable in Hawaii. It's paradise, yeah? Okay, well, thank you for that, folks. And then let's see here. All right, Kathy, take it away.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. When I thought about the subject of loneliness, or the effects of isolation actually on everybody, but especially for Kapuna and those with dementia, the song "Are You Lonesome Tonight" just popped into my head. I'm not sure why, but it just fit the theme. So the next page is some of the lyrics that make sense. Are you lonesome tonight? Do you miss me? Are you sorry we drifted apart? Do you remember the brighter sunny days? Did the chairs in your parlor seem empty and bare? Et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, some of these, I mean, think about not being able to see anybody for a long time, not being able to communicate with your friends and hugging people and all that stuff. So social isolation was initiated to protect everybody from getting COVID-19, especially Kapuna. But it's actually having adverse effects on them and others, especially on those with Alzheimer's or the dementias. And that's what I want to talk to you about today. I've got a lot of statistics that are interesting. I mean, when I was doing the research, there is just a ton of stuff out there about isolation and loneliness and its effects on health. So as we go through here, I'm going to give you some of those statistics. Okay, so loneliness of socialization, of social isolation. Physical pain is a vital survival because it's a warning that our body's in danger. You know, it tells you to take your hand off the burner, and it tells you that if you have heart pain or chest pain, you should see your doctor, right? So that's physical pain. But feeling lonely is the social equivalent to feeling physical pain. It even triggers the same pathways in the brain that are involved in processing emotional responses to physical pain. So, that being said, so just like feeling physical pain, feeling lonely and disconnected from others is also a signal that we need to take care of ourselves by seeking the safety and comfort of companionship. Some effects of the pandemic. No group has been harder hit by the pandemic of 2020 than seniors. The COVID-19 pandemic has put many older adults' social lives on hold, leaving them at greater risk for loneliness. And even when they're with their families, they can still feel lonely. And then they have a higher risk for developing severe symptoms from COVID-19, so many are staying home. But even before the pandemic, public health experts were studying the prevalence and health impacts of loneliness in the United States, which it really seems odd. I would never have thought about that. But loneliness affects between 19% and 43% of adults ages 60 and older. Many adults ages 50 and older are at risk of poor health from prolonged loneliness as well. That's pretty interesting facts. And then research continued. Research has shown that prolonged loneliness is associated with increased risk of premature death, much like smoking, alcohol, and obesity. And loneliness is also associated with elevated risk for heart disease and stroke, increased physician visits, and ER visits. So think about people go to the doctor because they're lonely. I would believe that. Plus, they're feeling different stresses on their body, so that would be another reason for going to the doctor. Okay, lonely seniors are at risk of illness and death. So these statistics came from the Alzheimer's Association. 59% are at higher risk of mental or physical decline. 45% are likely for increased risk of death, and 60% increased risk of dementia. And then we're going to talk more about that especially. 29% more likely to develop coronary heart disease, and 32% more likely to have a stroke. That's pretty significant stuff. Okay, so the poll was taken and 43% of Americans ages 60 and above report feeling lonely. So that's a lot of us. I'll admit I'm over 60. I'm not lonely though, so just saying. Okay, so brain health and mental sharpness affected by loneliness. Older adults who are socially isolated or feel lonely also tend to perform worse on thinking ability tests, especially when required to process information rapidly, because their brain gets sluggish because they've been alone or isolated. They also show more rapid decline in performance on those tests over several years after follow-up testing by the doctors. Okay, so it's been established that loneliness may contribute to cognitive decline through many pathways, and that's physical inactivity, symptoms of depression, poor sleep, increased blood pressure, and inflammation. I had a phone call from a caregiver yesterday who wanted to talk about bringing her mother to adult daycare, because her mother was, before this isolation shutdown stuff, her mother was very active. She's independent. She's 83 years old, but she no dementia. She can do everything for herself. Her daughter does cook for her. But over the past several months, she's been slowing down and showing decline in her abilities because she's sitting all day in front of the television with no stimulation, no socialization except with her son or daughter. And she just needs more. She needs to be out and about. So she's going to come and talk to us about bringing her mom to adult daycare. And I'm going to talk more about adult daycare and its benefits a bit later too. So loneliness is linked with two key brain changes that occur in Alzheimer's disease: the buildup of beta amyloid in the brain and the buildup of tau proteins. Theory suggests that loneliness and other psychological stressors act to chronically trigger the biological stress response, which in turn appears to increase these two factors. Tau and beta amyloid related pathologies have been the hallmark of Alzheimer's disease. CSF and blood tau and amyloid have been tested and monitored as potential biomarkers for Alzheimer's disease, mild cognitive impairment, vascular dementia, and other neurodegenerative disorders, which is pretty interesting. That's a lot of technical terms, but just to get the idea that loneliness triggers the same kind of stuff that is seen in Alzheimer's. So this stress response, this happens to everybody. So you've got your nervous system, your musculoskeletal system, your respiratory system, cardiovascular, endocrine, and gastrointestinal system. All of those things can be affected by stress. So loneliness is a social stressor, can activate the body's stress responses. It can lead to increased inflammation and reduced immunity, especially in older adults. Inflammation is the body's response to fight off infection or heal an injury, but when unchecked, it can be harmful. Stress hormones play an important role in making sure that inflammation doesn't get out of control. And under chronic stress, the body becomes less sensitive to the effects of stress hormones, leading to increased inflammation and eventually disease. And Rick, if I'm going too fast, please say something, because I tend to get wound up here.
You're doing great. Good information, Kathy. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so as I said before, social isolation, I'm sorry, my tongue gets in the way, because of the pandemic has had adverse reactions on older adults, especially those with dementia. So reports in decline, doctors have reported increased falls, pulmonary infections, depression, and sudden frailty in patients who had been stable for years. More than 134,200 people have died from Alzheimer's and other dementia since last March. And that is 13,200 more US deaths caused by dementia than expected. So they're correlating the COVID pandemic to increased deaths from dementias. So social and cognitive stimulation are proven ways to help prevent dementia or slow down cognitive decline. Most of my clients at the daycare are living with dementia at some level. So we keep them busy with exercise, socialization, activities, games, mind stimulation, and a whole lot more. And we do our best to keep them happy and active. And families have reported how much happier their loved one is since joining the adult daycare. But during the pandemic over the past year, many of them have kept mom and dad at home because of the concern about COVID. We've never closed. We've stayed open the whole time, and we've had nobody get sick or none of the staff get sick because we've followed some really stringent guidelines for infection control. But families have reported how much, I'm sorry, I was going to go back to that. Some of the families that decided to keep mom and dad at home have called me to let me know that they've seen a huge decline in their folks over the months that they have been away in physical and cognitive abilities. So when I'm talking to people about adult daycare, I let them know that studies have shown that keeping active and social and physically and mentally stimulated can slow down the effects of dementia. So I've got a ton of stories about clients that have come to me from being isolated before the pandemic and how much the socialization and stimulation has helped them. I had one lady that had gone home to visit her. She had been a client, and she had gone home for a month to stay with her daughter on the mainland. And she had a heart attack while she was over there. And so she was incapacitated. So when she came back to the island, she was very weak and a totally different person. but she had been away from all of her normal activities for all that time. So she started coming back to us. She came starting with on a walker because she was still so weak. She graduated to a cane. And then pretty soon she threw the cane away because being back in her familiar surroundings with her daughter that she usually lives with, and coming back to adult daycare where she's socializing with all of her friends that she hadn't seen for so long, she just blossomed. And she told her doctor that coming back to her friends and the activities is what made her better. So that was a great story for me to hear. And then I have like I said, I have 1,000 stories. I'll tell you one more and then we'll move on. One of my clients, when she first started, her daughter told me that she did not want to come. She didn't feel like she needed it. But her mother was isolated and, watched TV all day and was getting fatter and just not being healthy. So she had the doctor trick her and just the doctor told her mother that she had to come to adult daycare for her health, which is just a little white lie, which is acceptable with when you're taking care of folks with dementia. But anyway, so this lady started coming to us every day, and now she comes 6 days a week. But after she started coming, after a few days or a few weeks that she had been coming, she started getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning to get ready to come to daycare. So it was just, again, another person blossoming because she was socializing and meeting new friends every day and doing activities and exercise. So being social and cognitive stimulation are proven personally. Okay, friends make you smart. In an article in the AARP Bulletin, Michelle Diamant discussed a study that says boosting social interaction is a key to your mental health. As mentioned before in the research section that I talked about earlier, scientists now believe that social interaction is key to maintaining mental health, and warding off diseases like Alzheimer's. And many recent studies document the positive effects of social interaction. And like I said, when I was doing the research on this project, there's just tons out there. It's very interesting and exciting because I think letting more people know that they need to stay socialized and in contact with people is helpful. So, although researchers are not certain what happens in the brain to produce the positive effects seen among more socially engaged, it appears clear that close relationships and large social networks have a beneficial impact on memory and cognitive function as people age. And she continues her article with, okay, I just lost that. I'm sorry, so move on. So let's get back to semi-normal. And that's supposed to represent Zoom. So coping with loneliness. Loneliness is a common and normal human experience. Recognizing this and accepting that what you are feeling is part of being human. But the person living with dementia can't process this, so they need help with the coping. And that leads us to getting them involved and socialized. Okay, I'm sorry. Oops, sorry, hold on. Okay, so in doing my research, I found mention of a book called Spark, and it's by a psychiatrist by the name of John J. Beatty. And it talks about the transformative effects of exercise on the brain. He shows scientific evidence that you can beat stress, lift your mood, fight memory loss, sharpen your intellect, and function better simply by elevating your heart rate and breaking a sweat. And a lot of us don't do that yet. Anyway, so the evidence in this book is spot on. Aerobic exercise physically remodels our brains for peak performance, and focusing on fighting memory loss goes back to keeping active. He shows just how dramatically exercise improves mental functioning. So this book is really, I haven't read the whole thing yet, but I'm definitely going to finish that book because it's very interesting and very informative. So let's focus on what you can do rather than what we can't do during the pandemic. So the first part is negative. No, we can't have social gatherings yet. No, we can't visit our loved ones in nursing homes. And no, we can't fly home to the mainland to see family and friends. Restrictions are lifting for flying. I choose not to fly yet. but there's a lot of seriously affected areas on the mainland that scare a lot of folks off from flying back yet. Although a lot of people are going to Las Vegas now, so that seemed kind of odd. Anyway, so yes, we can develop new hobbies. Yes, we can connect with our telephones and FaceTime. Yes, we can talk to our colleagues via Zoom. Yes, we can exercise, and yes, we can take online classes. I got to tell you that Zoom and FaceTime has been dramatic this year. I mean, I'm in more meetings this year on Zoom than I ever was in in-person meetings last year. So, I mean, before the pandemic. So even though being on Zoom and FaceTime it's not as effective as being in person, being able to hug your grandkids and hug your friends and shake hands with your colleagues and whatever like that. It helps a little bit. I usually go back to Georgia for Christmas for 10 days to see family and friends because that's where I'm from. And I really missed that. And I was really nervous about this year because I wasn't going to be able to go home. I say home, this is my home, but going back to Georgia. I anticipated being depressed, sad, and lonely. And even though my husband's right by my side, and he didn't really appreciate that statement, but he knows what I meant. But earlier in the year, I had gotten my kids and family involved in the Zoom thing. We have regular family meetings. And of course, it's hard to do that because everybody's talking at the same time, and which we do in person too. So that's kind of odd. But I've had friends join me on Zoom. I got married on Zoom because I couldn't have a big wedding that I had anticipated. That was last September. And it's really helped a lot. And my granddaughter FaceTimes with me all the time with her new baby, and I get to see him coo and gaga and all that stuff. So that helps a little bit. It's still not the same as holding the baby. So again, another picture representing Zoom. I want to mention Zoom a bit more than what I'm doing and many others to keep in touch with loved ones. It's been remarkable here, being able to have meetings and conferences and church services and fitness programs all done via Zoom, and a few other virtual venues. But think about this amazing way to keep business going. I just wish I had invested in Zoom before all this hit, because I'd be a wealthy person right now, but hindsight's 2020, right? Oh, 2020, get it? Never mind. Yes, it lacks personal touch. The aloha with hugs, the great buffets at a lot of the meetings, I miss that too. But it just amazes me on how much we've been able to maintain and develop with the use of these programs and able to keep in touch. So think positive. Think about all the new industry that has popped up. Mask making. I mean, there's masks in every store now, and people are making masks out of their home for family to share with friends. That popped up quickly, and that was amazing to me. Think about the increase in home delivered meals. The people that were unemployed can now deliver meals and make money, and that's opening up a little bit more too. Think about the virtual exercise classes that have gained a lot of interest. People are trying to keep healthy in their homes. Even the television station has, on commercials, they tell you to start doing this exercise and do it through the whole commercial. So they're trying to keep you healthy as well, because they know you're sitting there watching television, right? So a message for everyone: feeling lonely affects all ages. Keeping active and exercise can be done alone, but it's important to keep healthy. Of course, eating healthy is best, although some junk food is comfort food, especially when you're depressed, lonely, blah, 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 which helps some of us with stress. And I talked to a lot of folks that have gained weight over this pandemic time. And but now we can start getting back to, physically and mentally. But just remember, if you feel lonely, reach out to family or friends or a colleague, or just somebody. Talk to somebody. Don't sit there and be lonely. Just don't. And you're not alone. Just remember that. And then I want to plug, oops. Well, I just lost my last one here. The Caregiver Foundation is going to be, it has caregiver support groups once a month. I'm going to get back to my page on that because I just lost it here. Oh, hold on. I'm sorry, excuse me. Okay, they have a caregiver support group the third Tuesday of each month at 4 o'clock. And the guest speaker for March the 16th, will be Dr. Tom Harding, who's the director of the Maui Memory Clinic, speaking on the topic of COVID-19 and its impacts on brain function. So it's sort of like continues what I've been talking about. So you can contact the Caregiver Foundation through its website, or you can call 808-625-3782 for registration and information. So that's a pretty interesting thing, and I know I'm going to tune in. So do we have any questions, Rick? Rick?
Sorry.
Okay.
Here I am.
Okay. Sorry. I dropped
You okay in there? You okay there?
I'm fine.
Throwing things around
there
help
it
with
is.
loneliness? No questions, guys. Do you have any questions? So I would add just mental health wise. So we're social beings, and so that contact with others is really, really just so important. And this virtual stuff works. It's not the same because the touch is so important as well, but it is something. Even the phone calls, that is something very important, of course. So like Kathy was saying, so mental health kind of issues, behavioral issues, the depression, the overeating, all that stuff can kind of happen if we are not reaching out to folks. So kind of the key to aging and aging well is to stay active. I mean, especially while you can. And if you don't, it's like anything in life, your muscles especially, if you don't use them, you kind of start to lose them. So the decomp can happen pretty seriously. So I know you showed statistics. I was at the Meals on Wheels International, I guess it was Meals on Wheels America. They were going to be in San Diego. And I was so excited because I did boot camp and I spent a year in San Diego when I first joined the Navy, and I haven't been back there since 1975. And so my wife and I were really excited because it's a whole different city now. So we were really looking forward to it. And then when they pulled the plug on that, I mean, it was just like, oh no. And we were also, Rotary International was going to be here. I'm a Rotarian. And it was going to be we'd put a lot of hours into planning this. And then we pulled the plug on that. And they just pulled the plug on Taipei. It was going to be in Taipei for 2021. So that's going to be virtual this year as well. So when all that first started, and Kathy and I, and Doug also, and there's a few attendees, Gary and others that are part of Kakua Council, we were just gearing up to do the mayoral forum. We had all the mayors. Remember, that was such a large panel of folks. We're all set to do that, and we went into the pandemic and we had to stop. So it took us, 6 weeks, I suppose. It took us a little while to kind of figure out Zoom and actually set that up and start doing that. So we've been we've become real good with the Zoom through this year. It's been a year now already, if you can believe that. The key, not just to surviving the pandemic, but also just as we step back in life and things slow down, is to keep the structure going. The structure is just really, really just so important. And that's true with Alzheimer's anyway, right? Because that's such a big part of the day without that structure. So Kathy, I would imagine your program has a real structured kind of thing that happens at certain times, correct?
Yes, we do.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, and so I've noticed, especially with cognitive kind of issues, if that structure gets thrown off, everything gets thrown off. It doesn't really go well. So that's such an important thing. But that's key for us as well if we're feeling lonely. So not just our kapuna, but us as well. So staying active is huge. Yeah, any questions, anybody out there? Nobody has any questions. I guess you taught them so well. But also, well, there's also a reframe that we need to do around all of this, because this may not end right now. Everyone was looking so forward to 2021 and everything being done, but that's so in mental health, people would say, how long do I have to be in counseling? I'd say, it all depends, right? There's no, now managed care tells you how long you're going to be in counseling, and that determines really how we kind of approach it, so a person can keep learning. So like a book like Spark, might be something that we recommend. Reading is remarkable. I don't want to toot my horn, but I actually lost 20 pounds during COVID, but that's because I took it as we're foodies and we go out to eat a lot. And so I knew we were going to be eating at home. So I made a point of changing what we were eating. My wife's not too happy, but then I let it go of it at Christmas, and I said I would let go of it through Valentine's. So I actually put 10 pounds back on, letting go of it. So we're really in control of our own domain, and it's really a matter of how we structure this stuff. So there's also, I like to write. So you could do journaling, you could write letters. I mean, there's a lot of ways that we could connect with people differently. And setting goals is real key. So there's an increase actually in Alzheimer's from people that are lonely. I think you pointed that out, Kathy. That's something to really note. There was, before we went into the pandemic, already there was research out there that showed that 40% of people are lonely, and it crosses over in all developmental stages of life. Our kids are even lonely. And I got to tell you, a lot of that's because they spend their whole time on their iPhones and flat screening rather than person-to-person kind of stuff. I mean, it's a real indication of how important it is to have the person-to-person contact. They're dying to get back into the schools, right?
Yeah.
Yep,
Channel
go ahead.
2 has an advertisement with some young people from high school that saying they were looking forward to graduation. One kid was looking forward to going to art school. He graduated, and one girl just said she just wanted to hug her friends. So it's for everybody,
Right.
not just us, not just an older.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and Hikino had recently, they were interviewing kids about just how hard it was not to be in school, and just how hard it is to learn online and all that stuff that goes on. We're actually next weekend, Friday and Saturday, our Rotary is doing the RILA, Rotary Youth Leadership Awards. And we typically, for years, we've gone to, it's a camp that we do for 3 days. We're going to Camp Hau'oli the last couple of years, but we had to go virtual. Now, the exciting thing about virtual is because we are going virtual instead of camp, it's going to be all neighbor islands. So all the islands are on it, which is real exciting for the kids and us too, because everyone's going to be able to meet each other that way. But it's not in person like it was, which was just so cool. So we've had to change our whole format to being like 20-minute presentations instead of the usual hour and a half presentations that we do with our youth. They're sophomores and juniors, and it's all based on leadership skills through Rotary kind of stuff. So everything, we've had to shift everything around a little bit. But again, the bottom line is stay active and stay in touch. So just because you can't go into a home and visit your kapuna doesn't mean that you can't stay in touch with them. So folks have gotten very creative with the laptop or the Surface or the iPhone, and FaceTime's cool. It works well. I know at the holidays we have folks that can't make. They're all over the world, and so they'll oftentimes FaceTime in, and that phone gets floated around everywhere, and it's pretty exciting. Everyone gets excited. This year, like you did, Kathy, with your wedding and stuff, for Christmas we had like, oh gosh, I don't know, 40-some people were zoomed in, and they were zoomed in from all over the world. I mean, from Japan and from Singapore and all over the place, that we wouldn't see ordinarily. So that was kind of fun.
Yeah.
So there's ways to work with this and stay safe in the process.
I think that Zoom, the Zoom meeting format has brought more people into the organizations actually, because they don't have to worry about finding parking and driving downtown and all this stuff. So it's been a big help, and it's been a good thing. Yep. But still, you can't touch something. Yep. So but I will tell you, a lot of the nursing homes and care homes have purchased laptops or tablets for their clients to visit with their family. I know you've seen that on the news and everything. So that's a really good thing.
Yeah.
But
we're not so much standing in windows and waving at people. Go ahead.
That's pretty poignant, isn't it, when they're doing that? But I knew that if anybody doesn't know, Rick's had over 40 years of experience in the mental health field. Not that he's been mental for over 40 years, but he's had experience working in the field.
Kind of.
But so I knew that you would have a lot of input in this too. So it's just amazing what loneliness and isolation does. I just was shocked at some of the things I read.
Yeah. Well, again, I would point out that we were a lonely culture even going into the pandemic, but now it's become worldwide, if you will. So Kathy has been doing the dementia in the family workshops for how many years have you done those?
4.
Remarkable workshops. And I mean, you get like, 100, 200 people, coming to those, which is remarkable. But you pivoted and you started doing those online also. which I think has turned out quite well.
Well, that's going back to more people joining. I saw, instead of seeing maybe 800 people in 4 workshops, I saw over 2,200 people last year in the 1-hour workshops on the weekends.
Wow.
So that was
right. Yeah.
that was phenomenal. Yeah. So, and my goal was to reach as many people as possible, because it's important for people to know what's going on with their loved ones with dementia, and resources and things like that. So it was very rewarding for me last year.
Well, I find that the questions that are asked are so poignant, so personal, so incredible. I mean, it's just a really valuable resource, but for information. We try to save those on our webpage, but you have a webpage as well where you have those all stored. So if folks are interested, those are all there. It's I mean, it's remarkable. I mean, there's so many folks out there doing so much stuff around this. Now, one issue though, I have to point out, and so as I say, we're going to be talking about technology. That's going to be the next edition of Generations, and that's going to be our next webinar. Is so many Kapuna do not have the technology or the savvy. I've gotten emails that people can't get into the Zoom here. I'm not sure what's happening for them, but we're going to put Doug to work and try to figure that out. So Doug is joining us to be our technician. So welcome, Doug. So it's the same in all the settings that we're doing. Personally, I found just what you said earlier, Kathy, that I'm actually doing a lot more out there, committees and nonprofits, because I don't have to drive anywhere.
Yeah.
And so I'm literally on the Zoom all day long. Now,
yeah.
I would point out too, though, you can get Zoom fatigue. I can speak to that personally. So what I do recommend is after about 20 minutes of Zoom, you should look out the window, look at the sky, listen to the birds, just I step out. Yeah, I'll take my phone for the phone calls, and I'll go outside and sit on our lanai and just take in watch our palms blowing in the wind, and just take it in, break it up. So you got to break it up, or go in and talk to my wife for a little bit, have that human contact. So I'm reminded of when raising kids. I would be working and I would come home, and the person that was home with the child would be like so anxious to have adult contact because they'd just been in the kid world. Yeah. It's the same with this Zoom. I'll call home to my mom, or even a brother called the other night who I don't think I've ever had a phone conversation with him over 5-10 minutes. He was talking for 2 hours.
Oh my goodness.
I was like, but that's because we haven't had that much contact with others. So it's just so valuable, to stay in touch with others. Now, you mentioned too, having hobbies. And so when Susan and I first got married, we went to a retirement planning. We were young, but we're already doing the retirement planning because she's very fiscally conscious of what needs to happen. And it was the first thing they said is that if you're putting off things like, golfing or things that you want to do, and you're putting it off until you retire, guess what? The research is you're not going to do it. So if there's things that you need to do that you want to be doing, you really should start doing them now. So of course, within the pandemic, but there's a lot of things you could do. If you've been putting off cleaning that room, for years and years and years, you've had a year now to get in there, right? And get busy. You could do that now as well. Making lists of things that you could do is also important. And then maybe just doing it. I've got a whole bunch of stickies on my desk of things that I need to do, just so I don't forget them. And I love just tearing the sticky and throwing it away when I'm done with it. Just that feeling of accomplishment is something. So those things you can do personally as well, right? What else, Kathy?
Well, I gotta answer Doug's question here. It's pretty funny.
Yeah.
Should I be worried about myself if I find the current environment just fine? I use time more efficiently, get more done, do less community center. Doug, you should be very proud of yourself, because you're one in a very few people that are motivated to do stuff on your own. So no, there's nothing wrong with you. I don't think, technically.
So that self-regulation and interpersonal skills and being able to kind of direct that and be a self-motivated person, typically those folks aren't going to be so lonely. What I have found though is the introverted person and we want to, I'm extroverted. I don't know if you've noticed that. I think Kathy might be a bit extroverted as well. But the introverted person, you really kind of want to check in on them. because they have a tendency to go very inward. And it's important to reach out to others. So if there's somebody you haven't heard of from in a while, might be a good time to check in with them. With our Rotary, we have a number of people, again, that can't Zoom. And so we personally check in with them. We haven't heard from them in a while. With somebody in Kakua Council, we haven't heard in a while. So we want to check in to make sure that they're doing okay, right? Stay in touch, reach out to people. Out of sight shouldn't be out of mind.
Exactly.
You still should be kind of thinking about folks, right?
One of the interesting things from my workshops last year was a lot of my participants were older and older, and they had a hard time doing the same thing as well. So a couple of them said their grandsons got them into the program. But on the morning of the workshops, I got several phone calls of people trying to get in. I walked them through the process of getting into the program. So they just need help, and they can get help from many different directions.
Yep. I think that's the area we want to kind of start exploring, because going forward, I think a lot of us had learned that meeting this way really works well. And so I don't think that's going to change so much. I'm looking forward to going back to restaurants and concerts and things like that. So hopefully we can do it, because it's not quite the same. Takeout's not the same.
Think about the thousands of dollars that have been saved on buffets and luncheons and stuff like that this past year. Those companies should pay us back with more food next year. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Right. I'm not sure what that's saying. The link didn't work. Lee, which link are you talking about?
Getting into the web, this Zoom thing, I think.
Oh, okay.
Well, we're glad you got in, Lee.
Yes, Lee. The one in today's Zoom. Oh gosh. Yeah, there was so our attendance might be down a little bit because there was a glitch in the beginning. We published the link that I originally used for the first Zooms as being an ongoing link, and that's not the case. And so I might have accidentally sent that one out. That could be what the issue is. So we'll get this down. So going forward.
I'd like to ask people that are on if they could give us an example of something maybe they noticed about themselves during this social isolation pandemic thing. Let's talk about.
Oh, you had to do it.
I'm sorry?
Yeah. Well, we're reading what Lee wrote, and it was that she had to manually type in the link. And I've been noticing that with Zoom as well. So before we go to your question, I do want to point out that when I go in to schedule the Zoom here for the last couple of weeks, there's a pop-up on the very top that's telling us that they're going to do a major update here on February 26th. And so you might want to pay attention to that going forward. So you have to have your Zoom account updated for it to work going forward. So there's a few little hurdles like that. Let's see, Warren. So Dr. Wong here saying, I make a point of talking with good friends at least once a week. People are glad to chat. I find that true too. It's just really important to stay in touch with folk. I think like Kathy and I are lucky, and Doug, because we're on these Zooms, and so we do quite a bit of that. But it's also really important to reach out to folks, like I said, and just stay in touch. So important. So you know what, Kathy, why don't I run this poll?
Okay.
And then we'll talk about that, and that's gonna go right into. So I have if I can get it to work, I have a closing poll. Oh, I thought I did. Where is it? Oh, here it is. Oh, learning something. Here we go. Let's try this poll real quick, and then we'll talk about that because it's where Kathy wants to go next. So, and this is anonymous, so, but you certainly can chat in with anything. Appreciate all the information, Kathy.
Well, like I said, there's tons out there. I could have done about 50 more slides, but there was a lot of statistics in there, and just chatting about what's going on with everybody is even better. So
yeah, Yeah. So at Hawaii Meals on Wheels, we started a Ho'aloha program where there's a number of folks we're not delivering to right now that are isolated. They live at home alone. So we've started doing check-in stuff with them. And that's going pretty well. And again, with the Meals on Wheels America, there was some research kind of shared around that. And so in New York and different places, they're doing programs where they're calling people. And there's a researcher out of Berkeley that was doing a research and during the pandemic and finding that just what you said, Kathy, about folks that are coming to your daycare, same with the phone contact, people's health improved dramatically just by being able to be in touch with people.
Yeah. So
pretty key. So let's see, we've got our results are in. So what are some ways you can manage loneliness? And so the top vote getter, 78% call a friend. So we all know that. Everybody on here knows to call a friend.
Yeah.
That's very important. We have a tie for number 2. So at 44, that was 78% will call a friend. 44% start a project like a task or a hobby, or change the scenery, go for a drive, for a walk, or if you can't leave the home, watch a travel show. We've really enjoyed travel shows lately on PBS. We found cooking shows are fun too. Yeah.
I've talked to several women that have started crocheting and knitting this past year. So there's blankets and hats and scarves and things going all over the place.
Well, my wife got all the stuff so she could do that also. She's ready to do that. 33% said exercise, walk, swim, dance. So to what Kathy said, breaking a sweat. So research has really shown, I have this in my coping skills stuff. Research has really shown that if you do just 20 minutes to 30 minutes of exercise in a day, or at least 5 times a week, really changes your mood. So I got to tell you, I have an exercise bike. I put my old Raleigh Super Grand Prix that I used to ride. I've got a new 10-speed now, but I put it up on a rack and I have it on my lanai, and I just crank the tunes every morning and pedal on it whenever I have time. It makes all the difference in the world. It really just adjusts my attitude to get the day started. It's better than coffee, I always tell folks. But even the walk, just walking in your neighborhood, if you can't go places, we will go down and walk around Kapilani Park and the zoo, and then go for a swim at Sans Souci just to change it up, if it's not too crowded. We were going to do that Valentine's Day, but it was very crowded, so we both said, nope, not doing that, because nobody's wearing masks yet.
What about changing the scenery and go for a drive, walk, or whatever? When it first came out and everybody was supposed to stay home and stay safe and all that stuff, I told a lot of friends, what Scott and I did was we get in the car and drive to Circle Island, because you're still isolated, but you can get out of the house and do something fun, just looking at the scenery, parking at the beach.
We did the same thing. Last May was the first time we did that, and it was our birthdays. And so we just packed a little lunch with us that we could have in the car, and we went around, then we parked at a beach where we could see the ocean, had our lunch. We never got out of the car, but it was just, it was very,
we did that too.
You get around, and you can get around really fast.
There's no traffic,
no tourists, right?
Even North Shore.
Right?
Yeah.
So then the next top getter is also a tie, similar ones. 22% would write a letter, short story, a poem. I don't know if folks know about journaling, but that's a good way to kind of get your feelings out. Or 22% also read a book, a letter, newspapers, social media posts. On social media, I find if somebody's not being very nice, I just block them. that eliminates the stress. I gotta tell you, I during the election, I just put people on mute for 30 days if they couldn't knock it off, because you don't want to be stressed. But if you like that, that's the energy that you want. You can go there also. But I find, again, more positive things are, the better. And then only 11% did this, but this is an exercise we used to do in mental health, so I threw it in there. Make a bucket list of activities. So just write down things that you've always wanted to do or things that you love doing, fold them up, put them in a jar. We used to do this for family therapy with kids, but also it's helpful with adults. And just draw one and then do it. So we'd say is there's always the option of if it's not convenient to do what you draw, you can always fold it back up, put it back in, and draw something different. But the idea is to have your ideas all written out, so you don't have to think real hard. You just draw one, and that's what you do. So kind of fun. And then is that all of them? Yep, that's all of them. Nobody had other. So, but there's all kinds of ideas of things that you could do. There's a program that Marsha Linehan put together. She's a researcher, professor, you may know, I don't know, or may not, works with borderline personality disorder. It's dialectical behavioral therapy. And I went to one of her workshops. Actually, the first workshop I went to was how to deal with negative moods. And her basic premise, it was a 2-hour presentation, but the basic premise is for any negative emotion, if you do the opposite emotion, it'll balance that out. So if you're feeling, if you're feeling depressed or down, put a comedy on. It's something that's really funny. So, and there's some old classics that I love, like Some Like It Hot. It was voted like the best comedy ever. And we were, what happened? There was something that happened. We couldn't go anywhere. Susan's mom was visiting and it was her birthday. We're feeling a little bit bummed. And I just went downstairs and pulled that video out because I knew the DVD that I had and put it on. And we were rolling in laughter. It just made the whole day. It changed the whole mood. I mean, it was just magical. So something like that can be helpful also.
Even the corny movies are funnier when you're depressed. The corny movies.
Right? Yeah.
Like
the corny movies are great.
I hated that movie before, but now it's hysterical, so just different stuff like that.
Yeah. It's like Christmas time, we did the holiday survival kit and I listed a bunch of movies. So like National Lampoon Christmas vacation, the summer vacation one is hilarious,
Yeah.
But everybody has, whatever works for folks. Also the travel stuff is kind of fun to do too. It's the mindset that really makes a difference though. So if you're feeling like, I have folks that, so right now in the Midwest, which is where I come from, it's like, I don't know, I didn't look today, but they've been sending me their weather. It's been like 39 below zero, 50 below wind chill, that kind of stuff. That's been going on for a few days. And so I was like on Facebook, I'll put like a sunset in Hawaii and say, here, hope this warms you up. Most people like that. Some will say, well, you knock it off. It's your mindset. It's all in the mindset. Yeah. So if you're gonna let envy eat you up, then I won't post that to those folks, right? So, but changing the scenery is very important. We're also, like I said, foodies. So, one way of dealing with loneliness, if you're all alone, could be to make an incredible meal. Look up a recipe and just come up with something different to do. I mean, or look in your house and see what you have around and see what you can create, get creative. I mean, so lots of ways to kind of manage it. But again, the bottom line is stay in touch with each other. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Anything else, anyone?
Just stay active, and reach out if you aren't happy. There's no reason to sit at home by yourself and not talk to somebody. Call me if you want to. I'll talk to you.
Yep. Lee and I invite all of you to come join us at a Rotary meeting. We're never lonely. We have great presentations. Now I won't say Kathy's come to it. She's going to join pretty soon, I know.
Sure,
So,
I am.
I actually, well, you know what, Kathy, a lot of the nonprofits that we're involved in are open to people to join in on. So we tend to send a lot of information out there, but any of those groups are open to folks to be a part of. And that's another way to deal with loneliness. And I kind of started by, it was actually Doug and Michelle, some Meals on Wheels, invited me to the Legislative Kapuna Caucus. And I really started by going to that. Kathy found me by referring a client to me, but then she was also at the Legislative Kapuna Caucus. So if you're into that kind of stuff, the session's going right now. And certainly there's lots of things that you could get active with, a lot of bills that are being looked at and writing testimony and things like that. And I'm not selling politics here, I'm just saying there's some very creative things out there that people can get involved with. And a lot of it can be very meaningful, and some of it could just be nonsensical, kind of take a break kind of stuff too. So the whole range, right? So Kathy and I are very available if you have questions. Kathy, how would they get a hold of you? Did you have that information for people?
808-292-4665. Or you can go on my website at www.hau'olihawaii.org and get in touch with me that way as well.
And then she's in our resources also at Generations, so you certainly can contact her through that as well. I think I'm pretty transparent out there now too. So you can always email me or call me as well for any needs, and we'll certainly connect you with anybody that you're looking for help with. So Rick Tabor, I'm at. I'm using my personal email because I'm having it's just easier. So it's R Tabor, TABOR, the number 1212 at twc.com. TWC is Time Warner Company. There is a Generations email as well. So the Generations is just Rick at generations808.com. And then my phone number, which I don't mind giving out, also is 808-285-5936. So, and then that's also in the magazine. All that information it's pretty transparent. So please do reach out. And then what I would encourage people is we really want to grow these webinars. And so if you found these interesting, we're doing partners and nonprofits both, but please do share when I send the link out. Sorry that folks had to enter the link separate. I don't know what was happening with that. This is why I brought Doug on board, so he's going to help me figure this stuff out to make it a lot easier going forward. Okay, so anything else, Kathy?
Yeah, I just want to say, things are starting to brighten up here in Hawaii. The numbers are down. More people are getting vaccinated, even though the cold weather in the Midwest is causing a delay in the shipment of vaccine to the islands. But go forward with caution. Wear your mask, double mask if you follow some of the guidelines that are going on. But just know that it's going to get better. It's going to get lots better. And we'll get out of this. Hopefully by the end of this year, we should be back to semi-normal. May still be wearing masks then, but I don't know. But just know things will get better. And I'm very optimistic right now. I've been talking on calls with Dr. Josh Green, Rick and I both have, talking about the vaccines and restrictions lifting and all this other stuff. So I'm optimistic because things are happening now. They went so many months with nothing happening. Nobody knew what was going on, and there was no direction at all. And there's still a lot of things to work out, but it's getting better. And I feel a lot more optimistic.
Well, I would add, so Kathy and I are on a committee that about vaccine rollout kind of stuff. That's very promising. And in the next month or two, we're going to move to the next tier level. I just had my shot yesterday through Hawaii Meals on Wheels, which I really appreciated, and it went very, very smoothly. And I don't have any. I'm doing great. So I would just be an example of, it works well. I think I'm doing good.
I don't see anything odd about your head, so I think you're okay.
Seem okay. I even shaved this morning. So. But the information is out there. I think really we're lucky we live Hawaii. Our numbers have been the lowest in the nation, maybe in the world, even in a lot of, I haven't looked at that, but certainly in the nation. Again, I'm originally from North Dakota, and they were the highest in the world for a number of months, which was because they just want to do things their way. But we also are lucky because recent research shows that 91% are willing to get the vaccine, 56% now, 36% later, which is how it's going to play out. So I think our chances are very, very good of doing very, very well, depending on what the whole tourist industry does. But I think, we've, as hard as it's been, I do feel fortunate that we've managed it as well as we have here. Yeah. Although, some could debate the economy and all that stuff as well. But so that's all good. And I think as far as, our Kapuna stuff is pretty remarkable what we've done here. I find that the resources and the services that are available and how we approach working with Kapuna here in Hawaii is remarkable. And so I'm very impressed with what we're doing and where we're going, and and all of that. So anything else from anybody?
I do want to say one more thing, if I may. And I think I had this in one of my slides and I forgot to talk about it, but I'm thinking about all of the humanness that came out this year. All of the people that made food available to people that didn't have any, and just giving masks to people that didn't have any. Just the humanness, the word human, it just pop this year because there was so much outpouring of help and compassion to folks. And even though it was a crappy year, that stood out more than anything to me, just to say.
Yeah, I think the human kindness, it is definitely a silver lining from the pandemic. Absolutely. I know Hawaii Meals on Wheels and the other Meals on Wheels on the island pivoted and did remarkable stuff. There were some new meal things that surfaced. My wife volunteers at the Salvation Army giving meals out. We have Rotarians that we just heard from the pantry. I mean, just so many remarkable programs out there. No reason for anybody to go hungry here in Hawaii. I mean, but just everything. Yeah, I agree, Kathy. It's been remarkable. And I hope we learn from this and that going forward, we've learned some things that we can be doing that continues, the improvement.
Be more prepared.
Again, not to keep going to the Meals on Wheels America, one of the presentations, it was a panel of folks and they were showing research that during times of crisis in America is when people donate the most. And they went all the way back to the Great Depression, which you would, everybody was, in pretty bad way then, but the donations were at their highest. And we found that as well as we've gone through this pandemic. So again, that human kindness, that humanness, we do have a way of rallying. I mean, it's, despite all the negativity that's out there and misinformation and whatnot, what does work is that we do pull together and support each other, which is, just so incredible. And, it just, touches me, to know that. Yeah.
Dale had a comment.
What do we got here? Watched Bill Gates be interviewed a couple days ago. I saw that, Dale. That was a good one. He noted vaccines are being reformulated to keep up with the plethora of COVID variants appearing. He suggested it might be wise to get a third shot this year, an updated version, staying in touch. So, yeah. So even with some of the things Kathy and I've learned about, I don't know if we want to go into vaccine stuff here, but is that this type of vaccine that we're actually using has been researched for like 20 years. Yeah, I think it's what the last thing I heard. So the fact that we could roll it out the way we did is remarkable. The fact that the whole coronavirus and the mutations and stuff are going on, it's going to be a wait and see what we need to be doing with all of that. And I don't think I'm not a scientist, so I can't speak, too wisely. All I can say is what I've heard out there and wait to see what the experts say. Science is science, I say, and truth is truth. Keep the politics out of it, we'll be just fine.
Lieutenant Governor Josh Green has been very forthcoming with information. He must be on 20 talk story things every single day, telling different organizations and groups about what's going on. So he's been very forthcoming and he's been honest about the shortage of vaccine doses and that sort of thing. But it's been very helpful. And that's part of the reason I'm so optimistic, because of just hearing what he has to say. And I trust him more than other people. Yeah.
Well, the other thing we learned is they find out pretty much the Thursday before Monday what's coming in as far as vaccines go. Yeah. So folks that want to get energized around all of that, it's really not the island. It's really what the shipment, what's happening within all of that. That's a part of it. And I don't know, did I hear you say or somebody say something with this cold spell has kind of affected this a little bit?
I did. It was on the news this morning.
Now.
That, the snow and stuff is hindering shipments to Hawaii.
Yeah. So I don't know. So I grew up in the Midwest. So I grew up in dealing with this kind of weather. Although this is the coldest in over 100 years that's hit, and the longest snap. But I've seen it before. I had a car freeze to the parking lot in Minneapolis, working in a group home. I went in, it was 37 degrees when I went into work. It was a little bit slushy. When I came out, it was 9 below zero. My car was frozen solid, and I had to take a Greyhound home for Christmas that year. So trucking and shipments, do get affected by this cold weather. This is extreme. I mean, this sub-zero, and it goes all the way down to Texas. I mean, so it does affect things, and we don't notice that here in Hawaii, except for what we see on the news. But I'll tell you, it's so cold when it's 39 below zero that when you go outside, your nasal hairs freeze up. You can hear the freezing in your ear hairs, kind of thing, and you really can't last you can't last more than 2 minutes in that kind of weather, even all bundled up. If your skin is exposed within 2 minutes of frostbites. So just as far as vaccines, I'm sure it is affected. There's power outages all over the place also. So yeah, pretty extreme. Anyway, we're just talking stories now. Yeah.
Thank you guys for listening. No, I appreciate it. And like I said, there's tons of stuff out there to read, but that book Spark looks really interesting.
Yeah, it sounds like a good book.
Yeah.
So again, so the next presentation, thank you, Kathy, very much. Big round of applause.
My pleasure.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And we'll get this posted along with the other webinars so you can pull them up. And then, like I said, March 17th, we're going to have Technology as You, which we were talking about. So Barbara's going to, from Assistive Tech Resources Center of Hawaii, will present. Keep in mind the radio shows, more good interviews there that we're doing. And thank you, FBI, Financial Benefits Insurance, for being our new sponsor. And welcome aboard, Doug. And I'm going to sign off. So thank you, unless there's other questions.
Aloha.
We really appreciate you joining us. Aloha.
Thank you.